And some things that I mentioned at the start of the podcast, and um, obviously we have in common. So you're from an African American background,
Correct.
and
Correct.
particularly when I was growing up. So as I mentioned, I'm from a Caribbean background. Within my family, we never really spoke about health. We never really spoke about type one, and I would say wider than my family, in culturally, we never spoke about it. So because we weren't speaking about health and type one, I naturally grew up not wanting to speak about it. And I didn't meet, as far as I met, any extended family or friends who had type 1. And I was just curious if that was similar to your experience of
Mhm.
coming from an African American background. Is it not? It's just something that I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, so I'm glad you asked that. So I wouldn't say that, far as health, we didn't speak about that like in my family.
Mm,
Uh, but I would say I think what you deal with, especially coming from African American families, one, if you're if you're living in a certain way, or let's say uh, above the status quo, or in that medium range, or higher percentile,
mm,
like not underserved areas, you're you're gonna be the focus of the health is gonna be there.
mm,
Now, if you're on the low economic side of
mm,
things, far as uh, jobs, education, um, awareness, is going to be like one of those things, like you just live with it, do what you got to do, whatever.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
also coming from the African American side, what we see is there are a lot of people that actually have diabetes,
Mm,
and we're actually more prevalent to contracting diabetes. An article I read, I can't think of it right off the top of my head, but it says 77% more than non-Hispanic whites, which
mm,
is huge, because that means, like, that's a lot of people that can
mm.
contract diabetes, whether it's
Is
type
that
one
so?
or
Oh,
type
okay.
two.
Yeah, I was just
But
about
that
to
that
ask.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
both
yeah,
that's both of them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
In the majority of the people that I do know, they do have type two,
Mm,
whether it was whether it runs in the family, or their lifestyle kind of took them down that path.
yeah.
um, but I think, like, especially people that I've met, like younger individuals and like
Mm,
teenagers, I think growing up, like when you grow up in these low economic settings, it's
mm.
almost like you dismiss that you have it,
Yes.
because
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
you don't see the effects that it has on you
yeah.
when you're younger, because you're young. But as you start to develop, then you develop all these complications. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, for me, looking back at it, uh, not for myself personally, but some people that I had an opportunity to work with, some youth in the city of Detroit.
Mm,
It made me realize that it doesn't just it doesn't just fall on the teenager's shoulders. It falls on the parents' shoulders. It falls on the siblings' shoulders, because when I know when I live with this, and like you
mm,
mentioned, you asked about it earlier with the support system. I've always had pretty much that support system around
mm.
diabetes, whether it was my teammates, my roommates, my mom,
Yeah.
having that support system and having an understanding. And if they didn't
Yes. Yeah.
understand, I was able to inform them on why I'm doing this, or why I need to do this, or if
Mm,
I'm low, that I need juice, if I'm high, I need insulin.
mm,
So being able to break that down. But if somebody doesn't have a general understanding of how it works, they're gonna say, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with that person." And then the
mm,
person that has it, they're gonna think like, "Oh, they don't have any support." But it also comes from advocating and speaking up for yourself. If you're in school, you need to let people know. I don't care if you think it's not cool. Look, I wear a badge of honor with my diabetes. It's cool. So if
mm,
somebody want to judge you because something you can't
mm,
control, because you have a chronic illness, then that's not the type of people that you want to be around. Because
mm,
at the end
mm,
of the day, if you have a problem or issues, anybody should be able to help you and understand what you're going through. But I think it comes from the African American background. I think it comes from the lifestyle that we've seen, that we
mm,
witness, and we think that we have to be consumed in every aspect of it.
Mm,
when it comes to whether it's eating, whether it's style, fashion,
mm,
whatever, blending in, fitting in, whatever. But you
mm,
have to understand is somebody has to kind of take that leader role and be like, look, you have diabetes. We can't do this. I'm not even gonna
yeah.
allow this, you know. So I think it comes from the community
Mm,
being educated and being informed, which doesn't happen on multiple different layers of not just diabetes. But when we're talking health, we need somebody in the forefront to talk about these things, and it's
mm,
okay to talk about that you have diabetes. Like nobody
yeah.
should look at you any differently because you
Yeah.
have it, you know.
Yeah.
So
Powerful words. And I agree with you. A lot of what you touched on. I was that I was that child growing up, particularly going through the teenage years. And as much as I have a support system now, back then I didn't really have much of a support system. So my type one for me felt a lot of times I was going through it on my own.
yeah.
And what you were saying resonated a lot with me. So yeah, it
Yeah,
was just curious. Yeah, yeah, it
but
resonated a
the
lot.
thing is too, and then I'm glad you have that support system now, and maybe you didn't have it, you know, like you needed growing up, but the fact that you have it now, you know, and that's for anybody that's listening, you know,
Mm,
regardless of your race or regardless of where you're from or whatever, there's a huge community out here that understands what you're going through, and
mm,
we've either been through something that somebody else has been through, we're going through it now, or we may even go through it. So, you know, just understanding how important it is to kind of help out in that capacity to spread awareness,
mm.
education, advocacy, and, you
Yeah,
know, just showing everybody that we live with diabetes, but it doesn't define who we are or what we're capable of doing.
yeah.